Hello guys, and welcome back to Commander, the Great War with our Entente playthrough. In the last episode, we made great strides in the Western Front, completely surrounding the super fortress of Metz and Alsace-Lorraine, and also surrounding Danzig and Königsberg in eastern Prussia with a Russian force of cavalry mainly, as well as an army I pulled up from Poland that quickly got reduced in size due to my aggressive tactics in the area. But aggressive tactics and pulling some losses, especially if we go check out our actual kills compared to our losses here, the enemies, they're doing pretty good in terms of infantry, and we're all over the place with Serbians doing the best, really. Compared to the casualties, Russians are doing absolutely terribly. The French aren't doing so hot either. The British haven't even seen any action. So my KDR is not proven to be so good, but I think the land I've claimed so far has been speaking for itself, and we've done most of our turn already. We just need to focus on the land part of the western and the eastern fronts before we move on. Let's start with Metz, the super fortress itself. They actually took the battered down unit from Strasbourg and moved it to Metz, under the assumption that I've been besieging specifically Strasbourg this entire time. I was not. I was going for the weaker option of the two cities that I want to take. And now that they've moved the weaker one to Metz, to the super fortress, and left the highly entrenched position, therefore less protected, I feel obliged to go for it first. So we're going to take our artillery, and we are immediately going to fire on this bitch. No damage, but we got his efficiency down by 1. We're going to go in again with the fighter planes and hope that works. Yep, we got his efficiency down by 1 again. It's now down to 4. Metz is not going to last long once we start attacking it. First thing we need to do is close our lines in on this fortress and make sure everyone that attacks can be getting this buff, because Strasbourg and this empty hex don't matter as much. He's not defended, he's not in an entrenchment, but if Metz falls, the rest of this will fall. So I'm going to move this infantry unit onto these entrenchments that they have given up and prepare for an attack. I also need a unit here. I guess for this, I'll take the one closer up north, because we don't need to keep pushing outwards right now. We need to take over these cities, take over these fortresses before we move on any further. So let's move on closer, and now we have a good surrounding setup here. So let's start withering Metz down, starting with our less vulnerable army. I wish I had another one here, but I'm not going to focus this down because we don't have the troops set up. We have a lot of corps or garrisons in this area. So taking this down would be a much slower process, especially while this is at 4 efficiency. So let's go ahead and attack Metz just straight out. We dealt 1 damage. They lost no efficiency, but we did lose one of our own. Next, with the next strongest army nearby, we lost nothing, but we dealt 1 damage. Their efficiency is still at 4. Let's go ahead and attack with this one. Oh, I could use this one. Which one's actually more vulnerable? The one surrounded by 3 or the one surrounded by 2 but closer to the front? I'm going to say the one closer to the front is less vulnerable, just because this one is also guarding a artillery, the one that's surrounded by 3. So we're going to go ahead and attack Metz. Also, if we kill this unit, von Strassenberg is gone, and his buffs no longer apply to the units here. So we went ahead and we attacked, we dealt 2 damage, and we lost nothing. Going so great so far. Let's go ahead and attack with the one closer to the front. I said all that in preparation to attack with this one first, but my brain just fucking derped and attacked with the wrong one. Either way, no losses, and no losses again, 2 more damage, and honestly, Metz is about to collapse. The only reason why I know this is not necessarily going to work out is because they're probably going to swap this unit somewhere else the moment they get the chance. The only way to prevent that is to do some good damage to their other units as well, and that would be a tough thing to do, seeing as how strong a lot of their other units are. Like this one on Strasbourg, the one that was on Metz, is probably just going to be moved to Metz. But let's go ahead and take this army here and make it put in some work attacking the army that's not sitting on any fortifications. Even though I know they're going to cycle their troops, I'm not going to risk my units that are closer to the front or in vulnerable positions that much. So I'm going to go ahead and just repair these 2 units right here rather than put them on the assault. As for this western front, I believe we could still get some use out of our corps here, because due to the lack of supply held by this army, they're actually in a position to maybe do some damage. Let's go ahead and attack with the garrison that's on Verdun. We lost one, we dealt one. That's pretty good odds for a garrison. And let's use the one on Nancy. We lost one, we dealt two. And we got rid of one of their efficiency points. So at the very least, I know this one isn't going to swap over to Metz. It's certainly going to be this one. But if they do that, well, you know, oh well, boo-hoo. I'll wipe out these two and then really surround Metz. Maybe 2 more turns tops, I think Metz would last. And then once Metz lasts, take a look at the front, man. They're scrambling to get enough units over here to do anything while also trying to maintain the Eastern Front on both sides and the Serbian front. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. They are still producing units of their own, of course, and I have to keep that in mind. But I think this is a good situation we have ourselves in. With the French production, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to order 2 more garrisons. That's all my production for the turn. Brings my actual production income quite low, but I don't plan on producing too much more until we expand a little bit. I want some garrisons to fill in some weak points and hold some ground, and also, you know, for more encirclement tactics, but especially because I see that we're going to be making some pushes soon for sitting on places that I capture, like Metz and Strasbourg, so that in case we get pushed back, I essentially want them as buffer. And we have a good amount of garrisons right now, but the garrisons I have are currently mostly being used to hold frontage. And if possible, I'd like to not have to put more strain on infantry, because infantry are the ones that can really push and do some big damage. Now, I have an opportunity here to cut off completely the German rail line leading into Belgium, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because I'm not sure how heavily the Germans are actually reinforcing this area and how much they're willing to put into defending it. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to move this cavalry nearby, close to cutting it off, but not quite, while I repair the cavalry sitting right next to it. Or, you know, apparently I can't do that. So maybe I have to actually move it closer to friendly territory. It's just yellow. It's not giving me any information. I did a little testing and I still can't figure out why I can't repair this unit. There's some hidden rule clearly that I don't know. So you know what? Fuck it. I am gonna go take their rail line and just completely cut them off. Why not? I don't know how they're gonna react to this, but I'm gonna do it. I'm also gonna take the Belgian armored car. I'm gonna, again, use it to restore the supply line to Antwerp, because they only attack this place when it's low on supply, which is very smart of them. It means they believe they can't take it because of how high of entrenchment it has. It is a fortress. Impressive, really. The Belgian cities are amazing fortresses, and they don't believe they can take it. So you know what? They probably can't. So I need to make sure the supply line stays open, because we're really struggling right now over here as things stand. I'm also going to apply some additional pressure, so it's not just them ganging up on the armored car again and then ganging up on Antwerp. So it's not them turning around and fucking up my cavalry that are in the rear here. I want to make them feel surrounded and make sure they can't focus on anything, and maybe just lower their supply as much as is humanly possible. So I'm going to take this infantry that has just arrived here recently, like this turn. I'm going to move it forward. I'm going to move it forward, not up to Brussels. I don't want to put it in range of being attacked by the army on Brussels, because clearly they're leaving an army here to defend it. And they don't have the versatility to come and attack me with anything other than, you know, these or this. These are probably not going to happen, because that means they're going to abandon attacking Antwerp. And they're clearly pretty dead set on trying to get this from Belgium so they can finally get this nation out of the war. I hope to stop them with this movement. I'm also going to move the BEF forward as well. And I'm going to move them right here so that they're also in range of this unit, maybe making it stay put, so that these units may have to move to attack it. I don't expect them to move anything off Brussels, but if they did, that would be interesting, because they'd probably give up Liège to do it. I'm putting them in a position where they have too many targets to attack. I don't have the force here to actually drive them off and push them back anywhere, but I do have the force to distract them, and if they run out of supply, to do some real nice damage. Moving it over to the Eastern Front, I've gone ahead, I've deployed my armored train just next to Venetia, whatever it is, so I can apply some more pressure down here. They seem to be trying to pull a cheap move on me by pulling these small garrisons off of cities and using them thinking that I'm not going to take advantage of this. Whereas I don't like attacking small garrisons unless I know I can beat them, simply because it's free, essentially, to repair these. I want to make sure the AI feels pressure, because from what I've seen in this game, the AI feels pressure. It responds very aggressively when you put pressure on it. And it's good for making it basically have situations like this happen. If this happened to real-life Germany, I feel like the war would have been over by that point. Halfway through, it wouldn't even have lasted. So, let's keep applying pressure. I'm going to take the army over here, and I'm going to use it on this small garrison. Alright, that went better than I could have hoped. We lost nothing, and we dealt 3 damage. Perfect. I'm going to take the garrison next. Not as good. We only dealt 1, but we also lost 1. Can't repair it. But this is down to 6, and this is enough damage. The AI freaks out when you do damage to it, so likely it will either try to repair, which will leave it vulnerable, or it will try to run away and replace it with something else. And I've learned now that making the AI constantly move units away to repair and rest them is making the AI just stop defending a lot of things. The AI cannot keep up with it. Because we're so desperate for ammunition, especially on the Russian front, I'm going to go ahead and, of course, use what points I have to up that production count even more. And as for the British, I think their ammo is actually doing pretty well right now. So I'm going to take their points. They have 68 points. I'm going to purchase a fighter, because I think it makes a lot of sense for the UK to have a fighter. If France is going to be my land-based manpower monolith for the West, then the British can support them with some aerial power. Now, the French have their own fighters. They have 1 fighter group, but I feel like a second fighter could be very useful for covering this entire front, and even covering this channel potentially. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to purchase one of these. It's going to take 5 fucking turns to make anyway. I'm also not so sure if they'll end up needing it, but I want to produce 1 airship at the very least. Not for bombarding things necessarily, but for ASW purposes, because airships in this game have amazing sub-attack potential. And this is an area where we rely heavily on our navy. We rely heavily on the ocean, and I don't want Germany or anyone to fuck that up with some submarines, especially while I'm not defending it properly. So an airship under production for ASW purposes also sounds very useful. It may see some good use, it may not. I don't know, but I think it's better to be prepared, especially while we don't necessarily need these points for anything else. The remaining points for Russia this turn, I'm going to pour into buying another infantry, because quite frankly, Russia needs infantry. They need tons of infantry, and they have the manpower to support all of that infantry. But now for the Russian front. Of course, we're in the situation where the unit that was on Königsberg is, now down here for some godforsaken reason. Königsberg is all beefed up now, so we're going to fire the artillery on Königsberg. It's all we can really do with the arty right now. We got its efficiency down by 1 or 2. We've got its manpower down a little bit, so that will make this a little bit easier, but this still isn't going to be easy by any stretch. So I'm going to go ahead also, I'm going to take the fighter plane, and we're going to strafe Königsberg and hopefully lower their efficiency even more, which we did. I'm going to take the general that has the buff, and I'm going to move him forward and cut off Königsberg completely, so that hopefully Königsberg, loses their supply. And I'm going to stop him from getting cut off by moving this garrison to these fortifications. And then I'm going to take this infantry army that was coming up the middle, and I'm going to send it to these fortifications so that the Germans can't take them and try to pincer into my territory somehow. And now we have each segment kind of surrounded by itself. We're closing in on them more and more. I also want to do some damage where it hurts, so this army is going to probably move up here as well. But first, I want to see what happens if I attack with this infantry. Alright, we lost 1 and we dealt 3. Not so shabby against a level 2 German garrison. So we're going to move this infantry forward here, try to do some bigger damage. See, potentially wipe it out completely, which we successfully did. Man, it did 8 damage. That's insane. And just like that, we've wiped out one of their only units over here. Good. Now we're left with a cav, an army, and an army. So we're of course going to go ahead and we're going to move this infantry forward and claim that land further and close in on our enemies. I'd love to try to be a little offensive here right now, but the troops I have that can be offensive are not really going to do very good damage against these fortified level 2 enemies. That's our biggest problem here. Repair that garrison for now. I have a feeling that these enemies are about to run into a supply problem, especially now that I've cut them off, so I'm not going to attack just yet, especially not while a lot of my troops have just moved and therefore are suffering an attacking penalty. But I think we've accomplished a good amount over here this turn. As for the cavalry, I'm actually just going to leave them where they are so the enemies can't escape, and so that the Germans are still freaking out and sending whatever units over here they can, with the assumption that I'm going to keep pushing into their territory or something. That way they don't just glomp in on Poland or clash against my offensive over here, because in the west it's clearly the weakest, with a very injured Polish army. I'm actually going to rename this army, because I want to keep track of this one too, to the Warsaw Force. The Warsaw Force. Like, keep track of these this Polish group here. As for this ship up here, I'm going to not attack it anymore for right now with these ships, but I'm going to move my other ships here down south a little further as more of a surrounding force and as more of a screen for the dreadnought. I don't know if they're going to keep picking a fight up here, but with the British Navy incoming and the easy ability to retreat over here should I need to, I think everything over here will turn out pretty fine. And with that, I believe we've moved every force and done every attack I plan on doing. We've used basically all the points we have, so let's end our turn and see how this goes. Okay, a German submarine has shown itself. They are moving the brunt force of their navy up here to meet the Russians, which means I could maybe cut them off with the Brits. They have chosen to run eastwards. Ooh, they put a lot of effort into retreating to their rear, actually completely giving up their front in order to wipe out one of those cavalry units. I don't think that was so bad for us, because it completely uprooted their offensive. With Serbia, they're going on a much bigger offensive to our garrisoning units. It's really hard to keep up with this shit, man. I hope my Serbian infantry finishes soon, because it's going to be fucking needed. They're reshuffling everything on this Austrian front. They completely pulled the small garrisons out of there. They are pincering back into Poland again. And that's about it. I mean, they got another French convoy. Well, I think the first French convoy. The British convoys are moving without much issue. I'm distracting the entire enemy navy. Air research is now available, and Turkey has gone to war, unfortunately, as quickly as they possibly could. Okay, so we got the 2 British subs. We got another Russian armored train, and the British and the French have developed barbed wire. We've also gotten some commanders. Barbed wire. Now, how does that work? Let's focus on our ships first. So, Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, has now entered the war. This is a problem. They only seem to have 2 ports, and they're pretty centrally located. So if I actually set up around here, I could maybe block in their entire navy, theoretically. What's a good centering point? I can't cover this whole stretch, but right around here is a good centering point. So let's go ahead and let's move. Let's start with the, what's 1, 2? I want to stay away 1, 2, 2 hexes out or 1 hex out or whatever. I know they get bonuses at their home port, so I want to stay roughly this far out. So let's move this pre-dreadnoughts right about here, let's say. The other pre-dreadnought is going to move right about... this is a little tricky. I'm going to move right about here. Let's just... sure. Why not? Take the dreadnought, move it behind the pre-dreadnoughts. Put an armored cruiser there. Put an armored cruiser there. And we still have 1 more armored cruiser. I'm going to use it to actually completely shut off this waterway here, so they have to go this way if they want to get around. I'm also going to send one of these submarines down here and use just 1 submarine to block this point off. Good. That takes care of that. Now let's get the Canadian Expeditionary Force over to this front, where they are desperately going to be needed. Now for the British Navy, I'm going to move this dreadnought just all the way up here to the front. And we're going to want to meet the other dreadnought up pretty close by. And I want to make a formation over here centered around them. We also have an armored cruiser in the rear here. I'll figure that out in a second. So, let's see. Armored cruiser can go, let's say, right between them. No, I want it to be more in the front because it's a little bit tankier. As for the pre-dreadnoughts, we'll put one on roughly each side of the armored cruiser because it's pretty similar to those. Put a light cruiser up north, a light cruiser down south, and another light cruiser up north with this formation. The armored cruiser is going to move roughly in that direction anyway. This is definitely our stronger of our two forces, if our less uniform variant of such. The Russian submarine is going to move back closer to Russian waters. We're in a bit of a predicament here with the Russian Navy, as the Germans have chosen to just bear the full might of their Navy against the Russian Navy, including... Ooh, don't do that. Including the submarine. So this armored cruiser is going to retreat back to home waters, into the home port, and I can repair it immediately. Look at that! It actually just repairs for free. Is that how all ships repair? That's really interesting. Anyway, let's take this pre-dreadnought and move that back as well. Wow, ships repair with no industry production. I didn't know that. And the dreadnought is going to go home as well. We're just fully pulling the Russian Navy out of there to give it time to recover. They choose to attack this armored cruiser in the port. They're going to suffer some major penalties, so I really don't think they'll do that. I think that would be pretty silly. As for this force here, I want to move it towards the German force to kind of punish them for stepping out of bounds, out of line, if I can. Wait, can I even do that? Oh, we seem to... What is this? Oh, there's an interesting limitation here. So we actually can't go any further than this. I guess because we'd have to move through Danish waters or something? Yeah, so only submarines can get through here. Wow, that's insane. I did not know that. Well, in that case, that really adds more value to the British submarines I've been making. I was right to make those, because unless Denmark joins the war, unless we invade Denmark, we're not getting any further than this. So we can sit here and stare at them and make sure they don't go anywhere, which is about all this fleet is useful for in the meantime. But that's really about it. So the British submarine is going to go meet up with the Russian one. As for the rest of this, man, I don't even know. That puts me in a pretty crazy position here. Guess I'll move this dreadnought up one. No, see, it doesn't make that much sense to leave them this close then, where they wouldn't have any maneuvering room. Let's actually pull back a little bit. Pull the dreadnoughts back to about here. And then let's pull the armored cruiser back to just in front. Move a light cruiser in front of that and a light cruiser behind it. So the task force is blocking the area off, but it's pretty well defended. This is guarding against anything coming out of these waters, so that's good. It's serving a purpose. I don't have any other purpose for it. I'm going to need those submarines, though, to send in here to really continue to fight and assist the Russian Navy then. I'm so glad I focus so heavily on submarines now. So let's deploy our two submarines. Oh, only one sub per port. That's interesting. Alright, well, now we have these generals we can deploy. And it seems to be a pretty good offensive general. Where could we make the most use of that? Really anywhere. But down here is probably going to be the best. Let's make it a little to the north. Like, let's use the healthier infantry on the northern end. So we're like double granting buffs, but he's also near this northern front. And we have a Russian general as well. And, oh wow. That's a really good general. The Russians didn't have generals this good. Hello? I'm going to grant the general to this full health infantry that has come in from the rear. We got a nice situation over here. The enemy's supplies completely run out. That's going to be fun to take advantage of. Over in Serbia, they're not giving us much of a chance to breathe. Oh, and our infantry is not done till next turn. So I'm going to repair this garrison. It's resting, so its efficiency is going up. I'll repair this garrison because it's still holding the line pretty well. This one needs to leave. So it's going to run away, and I'm going to repair it. And the one that's sitting in Kraljevo has recovered enough of its efficiency to be useful on the front, so I'm going to move it back up to the front. Taking a look at the British situation, I'm going to go ahead and make them another submarine because it feels obvious to me that they're going to need it. And we're pretty much out of ability to make things with them, and mostly everyone except the Russians. And for the Russians, I'm sticking with my idea that I really need more ammo for them, so I'm just going to purchase more ammunition production and get them up to 8, equal with Great Britain. In Serbia, there's still not a whole lot of attacks I can get away with, so I'm just going to take the infantry at the edge, which seems to always have a good run. And I'm going to attack this Austrian garrison, and we do 2 damage, and we take none, so that is good. It's better odds than I could have gotten doing anything else over here, and right now I just want to play a little more conservative with my Serbians, but doing something good where I get the opportunity to do something good, of course. Down here in Alsace-Lorraine, the Germans did exactly what I expected them to, which is unfortunate because that's the hardest this is going to make it. I've noticed these values have gone down to 0 completely, which makes me wonder if that means that they're completely out of supply. Like, I thought this was victory points, but at this point, I feel like it's supply indications, maybe? I don't know, but it seems to be in a much better position for us. I'm going to repair this Belgian before I forget. We cannot shoot our artillery because we're out of ammo. Unfortunately, it says -9. Wait, I only need 9 to fire my artillery? I always needed 10. Yeah, why does this only need 9? What the hell? I don't know. I also don't know how this barbed wire shit works yet either. But naturally, I need to continue the attack over here. The fighter will go strafe on Metz because I feel that's necessary. They have some sort of fighter over here that seems to have intercepted us, and so we actually lost another strength point of our fighters. I'll probably need to repair this soon, now that they've gotten their fighters back up to, well, fighting capacity. I'll take the infantry on the far outer part here, and I will attack Strasbourg directly. And with that, I have completely wiped out the defenders of Strasbourg, just like that. The only reason that did that much damage is because his efficiency was down to like 4 or 3, and he was half dead anyway. Instead of moving that unit forward to Strasbourg, I'm going to leave him here defending the outer part. I'm going to move this infantry forward instead, so he's in a better position to maybe attack Metz. No matter what we attack Metz with right now, it doesn't look like we're going to get many good results here. So I'm going to use the stronger infantry on the outer side here to attack the next enemy infantry unit. We went ahead and we did 2 damage there. Looks like we can finish this off no problem. I want to do this with minimal losses if possible. Let's go ahead and use this infantry. We dealt 4 damage, we took 1. Unfortunate that we took any. For that attack, I'm going to go ahead and use this infantry led by Commander Joffrey. We lost 1, we dealt 7. This is now wiped out. I think that's a fantastic result, in fact. I'm gonna leave him here, however, rather than move him forward. This land doesn't really matter too much. And now Metz is all alone and out of supply. Next turn, we'll get a hit it again with some artillery, which I'm going to repair right now while it's, you know, not able to fire. I don't even remember how it lost a point. It must have been strafed or something by enemies. I'm going to repair these 2 garrisons. I'm going to repair this infantry here. And this cavalry is in a bit of a sticky situation now that they've kind of dogpiled on top of it. There's no easy way out. So I just kind of have to make do here. And in order to do that, I'm going to move right here next to my infantry. And I'm going to repair the cavalry and hope that it can survive there for the time being. My goal over here in Belgium is now to keep them panicking and to keep pushing them back. If I can just push them entirely out of Belgium, that would be great. I doubt that's going to happen, especially now that my point where I cut them off is no longer defended. But we have a nice skirmishing unit belonging to Belgium, of all countries here, which only has 17% national morale. So I'm just going to use it for what it's going to be good for at this point, and that's claiming land and sowing havoc at this point. So let's take it. I don't want it to be in range of being attacked by anyone on a city, because city units are going to stay there and they're going to defend. They're not just going to walk away unless they're going to be replaced. So I'm going to move it up here, kind of keep the pressure up, as well as kind of claim one of their fortifications so they can't just easily step on it. Ideally, they're just going to attack this unit and push it back. It's going to get all kinds of fucked up. Maybe killed. I don't know. but it's better serving this role than no role at all currently. As for the BEF, it's going to have to push up as well to keep up with this. It's going to push up towards their infantry here that is currently led by a commander. Meaning it's... wow. It's level 2 and it's led by a commander. Its stats are insane. Missing efficiency or not. But it's all alone right now too, meaning this is also kind of a good time to try to deal some damage to it, potentially. But the odds we have aren't so great. The ideal situation over here in Belgium for my forces in the south, due to just how poor this situation is of attacking this unit currently, is to distract the enemies and try to get them to attack me rather than vice versa, without approaching the city hexes. So I'm going to take this garrison, I'm going to move it forward into this forest, hoping that it means that if they're going to attack anyone over here, hopefully they just attack the garrison, right? And hopefully it just keeps their attention spread out, rather than, you know, them just gang-banging this fucking armored car or some other bullshit like that. And that's everything I plan on doing for the Western Front. All we have left in this turn now is the Eastern Front, and we will finish that next episode because we are out of time. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series so far. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.